Are the Nashville Predators stretching Juuse Saros too thin? That's an interesting debate happening in Smashville right now, thanks to a Tennessean article. We'll dive into that, see if we have any concerns. Plus, Preds play their last game before the All-Star break tonight against the Vancouver Canucks. Full preview of that one, including a couple players to watch out for. And it's Hot Take Tuesday. We are grading hot takes, and I've been told that Anne has an apology to make over a hot take I previously made that she's now coming around to. So stay tuned for that. That's all coming out today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, thanks as always for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime who is bringing the spice for Hot Take Tuesday today.
I am so excited about Hot Take Tuesday. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer at ontheforecheck.com.
Yes, the first thing you told me, because I made a hot take earlier this week, you said was a hot take. And now you're telling me, you might be onto something. So
okay.
We're going to dive into it more.
Here it is. So earlier, was it this week or late last week, Nick just whipped out a hot take that the Predators should go pick up Phil Kessel. And I will admit that in my heart of hearts, I poo-pooed this and thought, let's just not even. And then I spent some time. I lost several hours of my life to Phil Kessel. Highlights, statistics, and research. And now I'm here to apologize to you, Nick.
Thank you.
Because you're right. And also to say that this sucks now, because if we don't pick up Phil Kessel, I will be so disappointed.
Yes. I want to know a little bit about what changed your mind. So save that for when we do our segment coming up in a little bit.
Yes.
But first, some immediate hockey news. The Nashville Predators tonight take on the Vancouver Canucks. It is the Preds' last game before the All-Star break. So a lot to kind of judge. Preds got two players going to the All-Star break, so everybody else is going to get a much-needed rest. So I guess this is a Canucks team that's, weirdly enough, kind of on the up and up, Anne.
Yeah, this is one of those games that you look at and you think, okay, they're the bottom of their division. This is going to be real easy. This is a gimme game. This is not a gimme game. And we learned that the hard way back in January where they beat us 3-1. So, and this is a team that's having some success. They're coming into town on the second half of a back-to-back. So Nashville has that working in their favor. They'll be a little bit tired. But they're making some things happen. They won last night in Chicago 3-1. So definitely an opportunity for Nashville to continue some revenge games. But I think Nashville cannot take this one for granted at all.
Yeah, we talked about earlier, sometimes coaching changes are very hit or miss. It's not as, simple as a lot of people like to make it.
Yes.
In this case for the Vancouver Canucks, this is a coaching change that has worked.
Yes.
Bruce Boudreau comes in and, suddenly the team that was looking like, one of the bottom three in the league are suddenly starting to pile up the wins. And, they're now have more wins than regulation losses. They're on the up and up. They're 20-19-6, still far away from, getting to a playoff spot. They also have the trade deadline coming up. JT Miller, is he going to stay? Because he's now starting to, kind of find his groove a little bit. 5 points in the last 5 games. So this is a very interesting Canucks team. And, they beat the Preds 2 weeks ago in kind of a very weird game at Bridgestone Arena. So, this is a game where which the Preds kind of have to throw the standings and all that aside and just kind of focus on cleaning up what they need to clean up.
Yes, and definitely I want to hit on that cleaning up what they need to clean up because in watching the game last night versus Chicago, two of the goals that the Canucks scored were on turnovers in the defensive zone by Chicago. And that's something that we have talked about that Nashville really has to pay careful attention to and sort of clean up, or some of those zone exits, those first passes out of the zone. And Vancouver is good at taking advantage of those. So that's something I think the Predators need to be on their A game for. I think, Elias Pettersson really started very slow at the beginning of the year. He's starting to find his groove. Last night, Thatcher Demko got the rest. So I imagine we'll see him in net. And man, he thwarted the fire out of the Predators a few weeks ago. I was kind of hoping that we would not have him, but here we are facing Thatcher Demko again. So the Predators really are going to have to play well.
Yeah, we were all in on a Yaroslav Halak appearance in this
Yes.
game.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, for the Predators, you mentioned it, haven't exactly played their cleanest hockey over the past couple of weeks or so. They've given up a lot of shots on goal, and Vancouver is not the team you want to do that against because they do have a lot of offensive weapons. JT Miller's hot right now. Elias Pettersson is getting hot. They still have Brock Besser, who's
Yes.
rookie of the year caliber just a couple of years ago and can put the puck in from anywhere. Quinn Hughes on that back line. So they have weapons everywhere and they're ready to capitalize. So, it's going to be interesting. And I got to ask, what's one big key you have for the game tonight?
Well, besides the defensive turnovers, for me, I think one of the big keys is a player, and that is Matt Duchene. Matt Duchene had a really strong game against the Canucks, but could not finish on some of his shots. And so I feel like Matt Duchene did a great job kind of managing a lot in the last game, but couldn't finish. So for me, I think if Matt Duchene has a strong game and can get that puck up and past Thatcher Demko, I really feel like he's going to take the Preds and kind of lead them into a victory.
Yeah, for me, it's got to come on special teams chances. You got to take advantage of it. And you got to do a lot better than you did against Edmonton. Zero shots on 3 power play goals. But here's the thing. Vancouver has the worst penalty kill in the league at just a measly 70%. So they don't have a lot of good defensive weapons. I mean, they have good defensemen.
Yes.
They're not exactly the best at defense. And so this is a chance in which we've talked about it before. The Preds are going to get into high danger scoring chances, probably. They're going to get into high danger areas. They have to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
And, on the power play, they've got to be patient. Lanes are going to open up for them. That's how bad the Vancouver penalty kill is. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, Canucks, but, the stats kind of speak for themselves. I mean, they've got to be patient. They've got to play their game. And if they do that, I think the game will come to them. I think this is one of those games which if the Preds just kind of play sound hockey, not force too many things, then the game is going to come to them.
Yes. And another player who I think has potential to have a really strong game, believe it or not, is Philip Tomasino. He played really well against this team 2 weeks ago. He had a power play goal. He had several really good chances in that stinking Thatcher Demko. I say his name like Voldemort. But he, stopped him. But really, Philip Tomasino had one of his best games, I think, against Vancouver. And I think if we can kind of keep him moving and keep him going, he may be some of that secondary scoring that's going to help get 2 more points for Nashville.
Yeah, Tomasino is kind of interesting because we talk about noticing players. He's a player I think we've started to notice more over the past couple of weeks. And I think it's just John Hines maybe starting to give him a little bit more responsibility, maybe just throwing him out there against on a top 2 line just for a shift or something like that, while people are kind of recovering from power play or penalty kill
Right.
time, whatever. So I think that's, John Hines is starting to maybe take the training wheels off a little bit, give Tomasino a little bit more responsibility. And so that's interesting because it does feel like over the past couple of games, he's somebody who has kind of been buzzing a little bit more, especially in the offensive
Yes.
zone. So I would not be surprised to see him have a big game tonight. Another person I wouldn't be surprised to see have a big game tonight is Juuse Saros.
Yes.
Barring anything weird, he's probably going to get the start in goal. But are the Predators playing him too many games? That is a question that was brought up by the Tennessean's Paul Skrbina. Going to get into that in just a little bit. But first, though, want to mention today's show is brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. There's less football being played now, although the Bengals are in the Super Bowl. But, even when football seasons end, the betting doesn't. Bet Online has way more odds and info for all sports this coming season, from scores, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired head coach is going to land. BetOnline is the number one spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. But like we mentioned, not just football. BetOnline's basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC odds coverage is the best in the business, from sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games. BetOnline is your number one online wagering destination. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play all of your favorite games. BetOnline, where the game begins. All right, Ann. We have an interesting week for the Nashville Predators. We have the All-Star game coming up, and tomorrow we will recap this Canucks Predators game that
Yes.
out. Also, I understand you have a little bit of an Olympic hockey preview coming up here this week.
I do. So I'll be previewing Olympic hockey. We're going to be focusing on men's and women's Olympic hockey, which I'm super excited about. So we'll have some preview information, know the players to watch, the games that might make the most interesting matchups. So be sure to tune in for our Olympic hockey coverage. But we do have to talk Preds. I am so excited. I know it's a little bit disappointing. I think the energy around the men's hockey Olympics would be a little bit higher with the players, but funnily enough, that didn't happen. But I think it's going to be really interesting, and I'm so excited to be covering the Olympic Games. But before we get to Beijing, let's get focused here in Smashville. We talked about Juuse Saros. Probably see him in net tonight. There was an interesting article in the Tennessean that talked about, are the Nashville Predators playing Juuse Saros too much? So, Nick, where's your take on this?
Yeah, so the article came from Paul Skrbina, nice friend of On the Forecheck. Juuse Saros has played 36 and a half hours across the NHL this season. He leads the NHL in ice time. He's played more minutes than anybody else, any other goaltender. And the big thing is he's faced almost 100 more shots than any other goalie. So it's not just the fact that he's playing all these games, it's the fact that he's having to make like 30 to 40 saves a night in all of these, I think was Paul Skrbina's point here. Now, that's kind of interesting, Anne. Like, this whole debate is interesting because remember before the season started, when us at On the Forecheck kind of put together one each a couple of questions each about the Predators season. One of them was Juuse Saros. He's never gone through an entire 82-game season as the guy, I should say. I guess he is a guy, but as the guy.
Yes.
It's the beginning of a long week, folks. Bear with us. But, you think back to, Thomas Vokoun playing 70 games, Pekka Rinne obviously putting together a couple of 70-game seasons. And that was the question we had. Was Juuse Saros going to be capable of playing, a schedule like that and still being the same quality year in and year out? Or was he going to be a guy that, kind of was better in smaller doses, like 55 games to 60 games, which is perfectly fine for a regular NHL starter? That was something we didn't know. And my take on it is I still don't think we know. And
Right.
it's a fair question to ask. And obviously, Paul Skrbina talked to John Hines. John Hines said that's not a concern right now.
Hmm.
The players said, they're not concerned. We're not seeing any, lack of freshness from UC. He's still, same energy in and out. So that's positive. But,
Yes.
this is the first year. So this is something that I think we're going to kind of have to wait and see from UC Saros. And the good news for him also is you have a couple of hot goaltenders in the system
Yes.
that might be able to spell him a little bit down the line if it doesn't work out. But for UC Saros right now, I think it's just a day in, day out situation. Long term, I don't think we're going to know if this is an impact, for a couple of years down the road.
No, I would agree with that. And I think what we've seen so far, all indications are that it's fine, that this is not too much of a workload for him. And I think that this break coming up, the Olympic kind of modified, stretched out schedule for the next couple of weeks is going to be super beneficial, not just to Saros, but to everybody on the Predators team and everybody, quite frankly, that's playing in the league. This is a great time for a little bit lighter schedule. My concern about this is, and I hate to say this, but do we have the backup goalie who, if UC Saros turns out to be a 55, 60 game goaltender, do we have the backup goalie right now who is going to be able to carry the balance of that load successfully? And I just don't know that we've seen enough from Riddick to be sure about that. So for me, I think I think the Predators are gonna have to stick with Saros. This is gonna be the season that kind of tests how he does carrying a full season being the guy. But I think that how this season goes is going to affect conversations going forward about backup goaltending too, which could be a concern. I hate to say it, but it could be a concern.
Yeah, I mean, you want to put the guy in there that's going to give you the best chance to win. And I
Hmm.
think you also want to send that message to your team too, that, no matter
Yes.
the situation, no matter the opponent, we are going to put out our best team that's going to win. We're going to send a message is like, we don't care if you're top of the league or just bottom of the barrel. We're going to put out our best lineup to beat you. And we talked about that
Right.
back when the Predators played the Coyotes a couple weeks ago. It
Hmm.
was a game in which a lot of people were expecting Riddick to get the start, and they wound up going with Saros. And we kind of talked about the reasons why we like that, why we
Yes.
think that kind of sent a message. But it is going to be interesting down the road if UC Saros starts to get tired. I guess would
Hmm.
be the right word for that. Um,
Yes.
but you bring up the point. It's like if it's not Saros, who else?
Yeah.
Because Riddick is David Riddick. He's gonna get you through a game. He's not necessarily going to win you a game.
Right.
I think him overall is kind of a stopgap to Connor Ingram as a backup
Yes.
goalie.
Hmm.
Ingram, I think the Preds wanted to give him kind of one more year just to say, okay, let's make sure that 1920 season in Milwaukee wasn't a fluke. And
Right.
he's certainly showing this year that he can be a guy. So I would not be surprised to kind of see him be UC Saros's backup next year. And then maybe you start to see some games go to Ingram a little bit more because I think the Predators have a little bit, of a higher quality opinion of Ingram than they do Riddick.
Hmm.
And that's not a slam on
Well,
Riddick. Riddick is a great backup
no.
goalie. He's just not somebody who's going to be a game changer.
Right. Well, and I think that the Predators have just a more complete body of work on Connor Ingram than they do on David Riddick. So it's much easier to assess Connor Ingram because they've got him in the system, have had him in the system, and are very familiar with him in all sorts of different situations than they have been with David Riddick. And David Riddick's not going to see all sorts of situations because he's backing up UC Saros. So it's a logistics thing, but I agree with you. I think Connor Ingram is who we'll see. I hope is who we'll see coming up in the future, but how this season goes with Juuse Saros is going to be very, very telling, and it's going to make some decisions for the Nashville Predators. How Saros goes, so will go some decisions for the Nashville Predators. Of course, it is Hot Take Tuesday, Nick. We don't want to forget the spice, and we got to bring the spice, and we do have some spice to talk about. But before we do that, we're going to talk about our friends at Rock Auto. This episode's brought to you by our friends at Rock Auto. If you know me, obviously, you know I love hockey, but I also really, really love my car, which means Rock Auto are friends of mine. With the ever increasing number of different makes and models of cars on the road today, anytime you go to your local auto parts chain store and you ask them all, hey, I need this. And they say, well, what about this? What about this? And tons of questions. They look on their computer, they pull up the one part that they have in their warehouse. You can do all of that at home because you have computers and you have our friends at Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a place to go to save time and money. You can choose to spend 30, 50, or 100% more for the exact same parts from the chain store or dealership, or you can go to rockauto.com and use their family business. They've been in business for years. They have low prices for every customer, and they have everything you could possibly need for your car. They have brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil. They even have interior carpet. So go and explore their very easy to use website. It's at rockauto.com. And you can see all the parts available for your car or your truck. If you go to rockauto.com, write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Rock Auto, amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
Well, it is Hot Take Tuesday, Anne.
Hot take.
I was ready for your spiciness.
Okay, so I do want to apologize.
Yes,
again.
Let's hear this. Let's hear this off the bat first.
I do want to apologize because I, in my heart, mocked you, and I perhaps mocked you openly. I'm not sure.
You did both. Yes.
I did both. Yes. About your hot take about the Preds should go and look at Phil Kessel, and I thought you a fool, Nick. I thought you a fool. And then I spent some time looking at Phil Kessel highlights and games and statistics. And oh my gosh, we need to go get Phil Kessel. So okay. I apologize. You were right. I was foolish to mock you in my heart. I am here for the Phil Kessel. I'm here for this.
So what about him changed your mind?
So looking through some of his different games, watching some highlights and just kind of watching through some game recaps that he's been in, my favorite thing about Phil Kessel, and all of the sudden there are several, but my favorite thing about Phil Kessel is I am loving his passing. And I know that sounds crazy, but he is so efficient and accurate in his passing. And it reminds me of, how every so often there is this Ryan Johansson pass that just makes your jaw drop. Like,
yes,
you're just like, how did he see that? How did he do that? Phil Kessel has that. He's super intuitive in his passing. He's very efficient. He's very accurate. His assists, some of them are just astounding. And in my mind, I begin to put that together with Ryan Johansson and Ellie Tolvanen. And I start to feel a little bit like it might be the night before Christmas because this could be really amazing.
Yeah.
So that was a large part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially for Tolvanen too, who's got such a great shot. Imagine like just two guys out there that can set him up. It kind of makes you salivate a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm touched, Anne. I am touched that you were able to put your differences aside and see things from my point of view. So I appreciate that.
I will say that you will shoulder the blame for my disappointment if we do not sign Phil Kessel now, because my hopes are high and the letdown is going to be abysmal if it doesn't happen. But I am on the Phil Kessel train.
Well, what's the most you would give up for him, you think? Like if you're David Coyle, what's a max?
I'm a terrible person to ask that of because I hockey from the heart and not the wallet. So you
Okay.
tell me, what would you give up for him?
So I'd go second round pick,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
second round pick, and maybe, if Arizona wanted it, a mid-level prospect. Obviously, none of your blue chippers.
No.
Maybe a guy like Simo Knack or Luke Prokop, somebody
Mhm.
who's
Whoa.
oh, did I hit a nerve on Prokop?
Yeah, no, that's my boy. Nope, nope,
Okay.
no.
Okay. So anybody other than Prokop, okay.
Yeah.
Somebody like that, who, might be, potential with the Preds someday, but,
Mhm.
not exactly somebody you're building your team around in the future. Uh,
Yeah.
that's maybe as high as I would go. I
Yeah.
don't know if he's worth a first.
Okay, now see, you got my hopes up. I have fallen in love with this idea, and now you're like, "But I wouldn't go too much." Look, I'm all in. So
Okay. I'm all in, but I will say if somebody's willing to give up a first for Phil Kessel, go for it, man.
okay,
Go for it. Good
let's
luck, Calgary Flames.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pointed. That's very
Okay.
pointed.
So what's a hot take you have, Anne?
A hot take. So here is my hot take, you tell me. You go ahead and judge this and tell me spice level where we're at. The Nashville Predators are a better playoff team than 7 of the 8 Pacific teams. The
Of the
exception being,
Pacific teams.
yes,
Okay,
yes,
who's the one?
Vegas.
I would argue maybe they match up better with Vegas.
Really? Who do you think
Yeah.
would give them trouble?
In the Pacific? I
Yeah.
mean, Vegas would give them trouble, but I think they match up very well with them.
Mhm.
It's not, I don't really say they match up better or not. Although, they're probably going to have Jack Eichel by the time the playoffs start. So that
Ugh.
might
Yeah.
change things a little bit. By Chandler Stevenson is the number one center. Um, yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Ah, you know what? I would say that is a lukewarm take.
Mhm.
I
Okay.
don't think that's a very hot take because I'm going through the Pacific right now, like LA,
Yeah.
Anaheim,
The
the
Flames.
Flames, the Oilers. I don't know if the Oilers are gonna be in it, but the Preds always have trouble with the Oilers.
I know,
That's
but that's just a hitch in the giddy up. Like I feel like we are a better playoff team than the Oilers.
that's not saying much.
Well, I know, that's true. But I feel like of all of the teams in the Pacific, I feel like Nashville is a better team, would be a better playoff team than anybody with perhaps the exception of Vegas. Yeah. I really feel like the Predators are as close to the real deal as we've seen in a really long time.
I think you're right. I think they have a lot of things going with them. I think there's a
Mhm.
couple of things they need to clean up to get there.
Yes.
That kind of
Yeah.
leads me to my hot take, Anne.
Okay.
The Predators will have a top 2 finish in the Central Division.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Oh, I'm
okay.
going for it.
You really are. I'm gonna say that one is a little that one's a little spicy. Like that one's definitely
Really? Okay.
I think it is. And look, I feel like the Predators are in a good position. I just think this Central Division is crazy right now. And the team, obviously Colorado is just sort of their own little thing.
Although
But
I will say, Colorado, their one loss in the month of January,
that's
who was
true.
that against?
That's true. And I think we could handle Colorado, obviously, but Minnesota they're a scary team for me. So I'm gonna say that's fairly spicy, Nicholas. That's fairly spicy. Like I'm gonna chug some dairy on that one.
I mean, I don't know because Minnesota is a team we can't figure out. I mean, they're on a hot streak right now, but then
Yeah.
they were also on a big slide just like 2 weeks ago. They kind of remind me of the Predators a little bit, where it's just they go on this big run, and then they
Mm-hmm.
kind of fall off a cliff for a couple of weeks, and then they go on another big run. And the Preds have beaten the Wild this year already. So
Yeah,
this is kind of before the whole COVID sketchiness and everybody losing players and whatnot. So that was a legitimate win.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're beatable. I just think I think when
Okay.
you have the Predators kind of getting on a run, some of these other teams who have a lot of games to make up are going to get into situations where they just have to play a lot of games at once. And I think that points percentage is kind of going to start to
Mm-hmm.
kind of cut down a little bit. And I think the
True.
Predators, yeah, like I said, if they can fix one or two things, I think they're a top 2 team.
Okay. I'm gonna keep a nice cool glass of milk next to me when we talk about that.
Are we gonna get another apology, in, another month?
I hope so. I
Yeah,
hope so. Look, I am here to eat humble pie because I love pie. But I'm here to eat humble pie if it means that Nashville is top 2 in the Central. I'm here for that.
there we go. Alright, one last hot take, Ann. What do you
Okay.
got?
All right. My last hot take is when Dante Fabro returns to the lineup, which hopefully will be possibly tonight, UC Saros will face fewer than the league average of 31 shots a game as long as the defensemen stay healthy. This streak of high shot volume is going to drop back.
I would say that is a pretty chilly take
Okay.
because I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think we've really kind of seen over the past couple of weeks how important Dante Fabro was to that defensive core. I mean, they look completely out of sorts without him at times.
Yes.
A lot of chances. And I think the thing that a lot of people miss about Fabro's game is that he's responsible with the puck. And although he's,
Mm-hmm.
kind of got this label as a defensive defenseman now, that doesn't mean he's not a great skater. That doesn't mean he's not great at handling the puck. He's just not, setting him up like Ryan Suter did or Shea Weber, Roman Yossi, or any of these guys. But he
Right.
is still so good in his own zone. And I think you're going to see the Predators maybe play a little bit more responsible with him back in the lineup.
Oh, I miss that. That would be great. Yeah.
I
I
miss
I really
responsible hockey.
I miss responsible hockey. I have missed Dante Fabro. I think his absence has really yet again shown, as much as his play did earlier, how important he is to the Nashville Predators. I think we can't underestimate his value. He's key.
Yeah, I think you're going to see the Predators very much welcome him back in the lineup. And I think you're going to kind of start to see them back playing the way they were. I mean, he was certainly a big part of why the Predators
Yes.
were so good. Like we said, Predators versus Canucks tonight. It is a 7 o'clock Central puck drop. Last game at Bridgestone Arena before the All-Star break. So if you're going to the game, make sure you're loud. Make sure you get into it. Let the boys hear you. In the meantime, Ann, where can the fine people find your work?
You can find my work at ontheforecheck.com, and you can find me on Twitter at ANK_Mama on Ice.
You can find my work at ontheforecheck.com as well. Follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan. Also, be sure to follow the podcast at LO_Predators. Let us know what you thought about our hot takes. That's going to do it for us today at Locked on Predators. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back tomorrow with recap from Predators versus Canucks. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.